Indeed, in my capacity as Vice President in charge of the dialogue between the community, the EU Commission and religious and non-confessional organizations, actually this is my first formal engagement in this new capacity, probably the second after yesterday's heartbreaking, historic, emotional ceremony in Auschwitz, where I had the honor to represent the Commission for the 75th anniversary since the liberation. The topic that you have chosen today is timely. It's a good illustration of the type of issues we need to address in the framework of our Article 17 dialogue. Indeed, I think we should address issues which are not only relevant to us from the EU side, but also on which you as dialogue partners have a specific contribution to make. And I don't think that there is a best possible issue to start engaging in the new year than the Green Deal that we have launched, as you may know by now, on 11th December, which represents a deeply transformative set of policies that will change the EU economy, society, and of course will preserve our natural environment. Thank you. The measures that we have proposed in the framework of this Green Deal, as important it may be, but they are not specifically aimed at transforming for the better the environment or the planet or the biodiversity. This is a holistic approach that aims to improve the way we live in society, the way we structure our economy, and in the many areas from the way we eat, we consume, we use energy, or we move around. The essence of the Green Deal is a roadmap that identifies a sequence of very specific and comprehensive set of measures to turn these objectives into reality. And if I were to oversimplify the Green Deal, I would say that it mainly represents two things. First, the Union's ambition to become the only continent, the only decarbonized continent on Earth by 2050. Europe will be the first and, unfortunately for the time being, the only continent on the planet that would have zero emissions by 2050. And the second set of, the second parallel track to this ambition is, of course, a family of measures, a cluster of initiatives that would help us prepare and ease the transition to this objective, a set of measures that would, of course, cover funds, money, support, and investments to help and accompany this transition. In recent years, many of you have shown concerns with the way in which environmental and climate change is being addressed at the EU level. I remember, because I also had a past in Article 17 dialogue in another life or another incarnation when I was Deputy Director of the Bureau of European Policy Advisor, the in-house think tank of the Commission. I remember that Article 17 dialogue partners have repeatedly pointed out that we need to rethink our relationship with nature, that as humans we are part of nature, not standing outside. And you have rightly pointed out that we cannot keep having a purely instrumental view of nature, because that nature, our environment, has a value of its own. And this is indeed part of our humanity. In essence, the Green Deal means that we cannot approach this very noble objective with a narrow set of mindset, with a narrow mindset. And we should not approach it either from a technical point of view, where essentially instruments, money, and funds are being discussed. What we need here is a new concept, a change of paradigm. We need to move to what one could call an approach of human ecology, a human-centered approach, one that takes into account the social dimension of our environmental policies and climate ambitions. I believe that now is the moment to project this message loud and clear. Our proposal, contrary to few people who were very quick to criticize the way it was presented, I think that our proposal gives more back than it takes away. And it relies on the central promise, a sort of a green oath, which says, do not harm. No EU policy or measure should be in any contradiction with our objectives on climate change and environmental preservation. Sustainability is not a self-standing objective, but should be mainstreamed across the EU policy spectrum, as we must also pay attention to the coherence and synergies between our different actions. Something else. We have also to make sure, as this transition happens, that no one is left behind. This transition will either be working for all and be just and fair, or it will not work at all. That's why 10 days ago we have proposed a just transition mechanism, which in essence aims to mobilize up to 100 billion euros of investment over the next 7 years to benefit Europe's regions that will be more affected by the green transition in terms of impact on their economic structure and consequently social impact. This new fund will support economic diversification of the territories negatively affected, together with reskilling and upskilling of the workers concerned. We are convinced that through this central instrument for the transition, we can support by EU resources, with EU resources, job creation and new employment opportunities. Let me be very clear on one point. The Green Deal is not only about money or environmental targets. It is essentially about people. And the civil society-wide and active engagement in the transition will be paramount if society is to endorse and support the necessary policies and measures. And that's precisely why what we're doing here together this afternoon is part of this engagement, this anthropocentric engagement that we need as we approach 2050. We will be successful only if our objectives are underpinned by a commitment from all of us, and this commitment can be based on our desire for cleaner air, water, environment, energy, but ultimately what will be required would be an ethical commitment. The environmental crisis is not just an issue out there, it is with us here. And it concerns us now, the way we live, the way we lead our day-to-day lives, the way we work, the way we move. And if anyone here were to forget this, our youth out there are constantly reminding us. I'm fully aware of the commitment expressed by your organizations to promote a new approach to the environment and climate change. Your work and advocacy has allowed the promotion of a comprehensive, holistic approach to ecology. You have in the past, and you will be continuing in the future, to ensure that the spiritual, ethical, the social dimension of ecology are better understood and taken into account when talking about the environment. And discourses on the environment, although sometimes are catastrophist and apocalyptic, there is no doubt that we are in dire need of a positive, constructive discourse, such as the one you are collectively able to promote. You have developed as well concrete initiatives to address environmental concerns, and you have elaborated possible responses. Your voice is a particular voice, and it needs to be heard by politicians and by society at large. You will have a structured possibility to continue this engagement under the European Climate Pact, which will aim to engage with the public on climate action. The pact will be launched by March this year and will rely on three main areas. First, to encourage information sharing. Secondly, to provide spaces for people to express their ideas and creativity and work together on ambitious action. And thirdly, to build capacity to facilitate grassroots initiatives. Looking around, I'm sure that your organizations will be able to contribute and to excel along these three strands. The Commission will also ensure, with the help of our European Parliament colleagues, that the green transition features prominently in the debate on the future of Europe. It will be highly symbolic if at the end, after all, the conference on the future of Europe can be launched on the 9th of May, Europe Day, and I'm sure that the green transition would be at the heart of the debates that will ensue. Given your involvement and expertise on these issues, religious and non-confessional organizations will be welcome to join this debate. It is essential that you can count on our Commission's support and commitment that your voice will be heard. As Vice President in charge of Article 17 dialogue, I would like this first encounter, this first structured encounter under my new capacity with all of you to be the start, the first start. We will continue our meaningful dialogue across the street at the Berlaymont, but also across the policy spectrum. And I'm very much looking forward to organize our new dialogue, the first under the von der Leyen Commission, which I think, Ms. McGuinness, we should plan at a date that will not compete with the conference on the future of Europe. It's either before or after, but not around the same dates. And if you would agree, I would like to propose as title of our next encounter, as an overarching theme to structure our debate at the Commission, the notion of the European way of life, which encompasses many policies in which I'm sure you can effectively contribute. Thank you very much for having me. I wish you all the best in your work later this afternoon, and I apologize because I have to rush across the street. Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you very much, Vice President. Please, you can listen as you depart, because I know you are in a hurry, and I think it is important that you are here. We would love you could stay, but don't worry, we will tell you of our happenings. I think it's
I have people.
You have people, I know this. I think it's very significant that and important that the Commission, Parliament and Council work together on this agenda. So I'm very pleased that you could be with us, and I took note of some of your remarks about rethinking our relationship with nature, which is a key issue, with the ethical commitments, and also I think maybe we can kick off a debate in the discussion part about the European way of life, which we clearly know needs to change because of the environmental and the climate challenge. So you may take your leave, sir, and thank you for being here. And again, we do appreciate your presence. And as you leave, we will continue our discussion.